I was 1,000 miles away when my phone buzzed, a sharp vibration cutting through the hum of the conference room. At first, I thought it was just another email notification, but then the motion detection alert from my home security app flashed across the screen. My heart skipped a beat that I opened the live feed and froze. There they were, my parents and my brother, laughing and joking, pacing through my living room like they owned it. Behind them, a contractor carried measuring tape and a level, moving with purpose toward my hydroponic garden. Every plant I had nurtured for years, my pride and sanctuary, was at risk. I could almost hear the sound of the saws that hadn't even arrived. My mother glanced at the contractor and then at my brother, her voice dripping with casual dismissal. Morgan won't make a scene. She's always too busy with work. I felt a surge of shock, but it was quickly replaced by something colder, calculated. No screaming, no hysterics. I sat there, thousands of miles from home, my fingers trembling slightly over the screen, formulating my next move with precision. Every angle, every step they took, every word caught on camera became fuel for a plan I would execute once I landed. I knew I couldn't waste another second. My first action was booking the earliest flight home, my mind racing through logistics while keeping my professional composure in the conference room. I instructed my assistant to postpone meetings, packed a bag with the essentials, and mentally rehearsed my confrontation. Every detail mattered. I needed leverage, I needed evidence, and most importantly, I needed control. Watching them measure the walls, laughing as if I weren't even a factor, ignited a clarity I hadn't expected. This wasn't just a petty disagreement about space or priorities. This was a betrayal on a fundamental level. They had trespassed not just physically but emotionally into the life I had painstakingly built. And now they were going to destroy it. The plane ticket confirmed in my inbox. My shock transformed fully into resolve. I wasn't going to let them bulldoze my sanctuary. I wouldn't react impulsively. I would respond strategically. Each step of this plan, every conversation I would have once I arrived, had to be deliberate. I allowed myself one final glance at the live feed, committing every detail to memory. And in that moment, the fear and disbelief melted into cold determination. I wasn't just going home, I was reclaiming my space, my dignity, and the respect I had long been denied. Drop a comment and let me know. Have you ever discovered a betrayal through technology? What did you do next? I didn't spend the flight crying. I spent it building a case. As the plane lifted into the clouds, I opened my laptop and started a meticulous audit, pulling up bank statements, receipts, and text messages. Every dollar I had ever handed over to Tanner over the past 5 years went into a spreadsheet, each line a reminder of trust misplaced and support exploited. IT began with the podcast equipment. $4,000 on microphones, mixers, and cameras that never produced a single published episode. Then the $7,000 I fronted for his dropshipping venture, which crumbled after the first month with inventory left unsold. The $10,000 down payment on a car he claimed he needed for work, but only used for weekend trips with friends. And that was just the beginning. As the list grew, so did the pattern. $2,500 here, $1,200 there. Loans disguised as investments, promises of repayment that never materialized. Each entry was punctuated with broken business plans and excuses. I just need a little more. I'll pay you back next month. This time it's different. By the time I reached the end, the total blinked back at me from the screen. $115,000. I felt the weight of that number. Not in the cold arithmetic sense, but in the emotional reckoning it forced upon me. This wasn't family support. This wasn't generosity. This was embezzlement disguised as familial care. I wasn't just being taken advantage of. I was being used, treated as a bank account rather than a daughter and sister. The realization hit harder than any betrayal I had ever experienced. I hadn't been valued for who I was. My time, energy, and money had been siphoned away under the guise of love and family loyalty. I allowed myself a moment of bitterness, but only briefly. My focus wasn't revenge yet. It was clarity, documentation, and preparation. I had the proof, the ledger, and the resolve. Midway through my audit, a ping on my phone interrupted my work. Haley, my closest friend and confidant, had sent a string of cryptic messages. "You're not seeing the whole picture. There's more you need to know before tonight." Her words made my chest tighten. What additional truths awaited me at home? Another layer to the betrayal, perhaps, or a hidden ally? By the time the plane began its descent, I had a detailed record of every dollar misused, every promise broken, and every lesson learned. My spreadsheet wasn't just numbers. It was evidence, a mirror of my family's betrayal, and a shield for the confrontation I was about to face. I didn't spend the flight crying. I spent it building a case. If you've ever added up what you've given to someone who only takes, you know this moment. Comment below with the moment you realized the truth. I closed my eyes and pictured what they wanted to destroy. My hydroponic garden wasn't just a collection of plants, it was my sanctuary. The quiet hum of the water pumps, the delicate aroma of basil and mint, the gentle drip of nutrients nourishing tiny roots, it all created a rhythm that soothed the chaos of the outside world. Every leaf, every sprout, was a product of care, patience, and love. I had built this haven for myself, a place where time slowed, and I could breathe. Now, I imagined what Tanner and my family had planned. The ring lights blinking, the green screens stretched taut across the walls, the garish neon sign. Tanner's world. The scent of earth and herbs replaced by plastic. The gentle hum drowned out by the drone of cameras and microphones. Their vision of progress wasn't about creation. It was about self-promotion, performance, and the kind of attention that had never nurtured me. So I sat in the airplane seat, staring out the window at clouds streaked with sunlight. A realization settled in. This pattern of giving wasn't just about money. It was deeply psychological. I had learned from a young age that affection in my family was volatile, conditional on my compliance, my offerings, my performance. Praise and love were not given freely. They were earned and often revoked. I had internalized the unspoken rules. Give, sacrifice, pay, and maybe, just maybe, you would be valued. Every dollar I had sent Tanner, every supportive gesture I had made, was a transaction born from that core wound. I had been paying for approval, hoping that my generosity would translate into affection, into recognition, into the sense of belonging I had always craved, and suddenly, the $115,000 ledger became something more than numbers. It was a survivor's tax. A record of my attempts to navigate love in a family that measured worth in utility and dollars, not in respect or care. I saw, clearly for the first time, how my trauma had been exploited, how my generosity had been weaponized against me, and how I had inadvertently perpetuated the cycle. The sanctuary I had built represented peace, growth, and self-respect. What they wanted to replace it with represented control, spectacle, and erasure. And I knew, with every fiber of my being, that I couldn't let that happen. This wasn't just about reclaiming money, it was about reclaiming myself. I closed my eyes and pictured what they wanted to destroy. Have you ever realized you were paying for love that should have been free? Share this if you understand. Saturday, 2 p.m. The invasion was already underway that I pulled into the driveway and froze. Cars lined the lawn, blocking my view of the garage. My grandmother's rocking chair sat abandoned near the curb, a silent casualty of chaos. Music blared through open windows, the thump of bass rattling the walls. Strangers milled about inside, tools in hand, measuring tape dangling from pockets. And there, in the center of it all, Tanner was performing for a camera, narrating every step of his studio makeover to thousands of online viewers. I took a deep breath, letting the scene register. My parents predictably looked dismissive. My mother waved a hand toward the interior. "It's just a wall," she said, as though dismissing years of effort, passion, and care was casual housekeeping thousands of people were watching. Perfect that I stepped out of the car, purse slung over my shoulder, laptop bag in hand. I didn't rush. I didn't scream. I walked slowly, deliberately, toward the front door. I could hear Tanner's voice mid-live stream, narrating every angle and measurement, joking about how creative the space would be then. I stepped into the frame. The camera shook as Tanner finally noticed me. His smile faltered. Morgan. What are you?" I raised my laptop and let the ledger slide open in my hands. The spreadsheet glared back at him like a spotlight on every lie, every stolen dollar, every broken promise. "I'm here to evict you," I announced, my voice steady, carrying over the music and chatter. "And while I'm at it, I'm going to show everyone exactly what's been happening behind the scenes." I began to read, line by line, recounting the $4,000 for podcast equipment, the $7,000 dropshipping disaster, the $10,000 car down payment, and every other transaction that had built the staggering total of $115,000. Tanner's audience watched in real time as the story unfolded. His carefully curated persona crumbling with every sentence, Tanner stammered, his jokes fading into frantic denials. This isn't how it looks," he yelled, looking for rescue from anyone, anywhere. But there was no rescue. His audience was wide awake, witnessing the collapse of a false narrative he had built over years, and why parents interjected, voices straining to regain control. "You're ruining his big moment," they shouted, as though my documentation and truth were crimes rather than revelations. I didn't flinch. I didn't argue. I simply closed the ledger, locked eyes with Tanner, and said, "No, I'm restoring my moment. My home. My life." The music stopped. Conversations halted. For the first time, the crowd inside and online saw my home not as a backdrop for entertainment, but as a site of betrayal, courage, and accountability I had planned for this day, every step calculated from the moment I saw the security feed. And now, as the truth radiated across thousands of screens, I realized something profound. Exposing deception publicly isn't about humiliation. It's about reclaiming power when private conversations fail. Saturday, 2 p.m. The invasion was already underway. Thousands of people were watching. Perfect. Have you ever had to expose the truth publicly because private conversations didn't work? Drop a comment. Before my father could defend him again, the front door opened. Haley walked in, her presence commanding the room despite the chaos already unfolding. In her hand, she carried a manila envelope that seemed innocuous, but I knew it contained revelations that would shatter everything Tanner had tried to construct. She stepped forward, her gaze sweeping over my family before landing on me. "This needs to be seen," she said, pulling out a thick stack of documents and dropping them onto the dining table. I could feel the room tighten, the air charged with anticipation. The first document made my stomach drop. A $68,000 luxury SUV lease, signed in my name. Only the signature wasn't mine. It was Tanner's forgery, perfectly traced, as if mocking the trust one had placed in him. I ran my fingers over the printed letters, unable to comprehend that my own brother had hijacked my identity for a car he had no right to possess. Haley didn't stop there. She produced more documents. Credit card applications opened in my parents' names, balances mounting, bills accumulating. In total, Tanner had racked up $40,000 in debt, irreparably damaging their credit. Sandra and Stephen, who had been smugly defending Tanner moments before, froze. Their eyes widened as they scanned the evidence, the reality settling in like a slow, suffocating fog. "You're kidding," my mother whispered, her voice trembling. He did this." "No," Haley said softly but firmly. "He did it. And not just to Morgan, he targeted both of you as well. Your credit, your names, your trust. All exploited." Tanner's facade cracked completely. "I was going to pay it back," he stammered, as if repetition could undo the harm he had wrought. But the ledger, the stolen signatures, the mounting evidence told a different story. One of deliberate predation masquerading as ambition. I stepped forward, voice calm but unyielding, lifting the ledger from earlier. "That's not vision," I said, meeting Tanner's gaze. "That's predation. You didn't build dreams, you destroyed them. And you used us to do it." The parents, finally stripped of the illusion of a golden child, slumped into chairs, their expressions a mixture of disbelief, guilt, and grief. Too little, too late. They had been blind to the warning signs, complicit in enabling Tanner, and now they faced the consequences alongside us. Haley's timing had been impeccable. The combination of the ledger and the forged documents left no room for excuses. The room was silent, except for the distant hum of Tanner's live stream still running in the background. Every lie, every manipulation, every false narrative had been dismantled in real time, in front of everyone who mattered. Or at least those who had eyes to see. For a moment, I allowed myself a rare, fleeting satisfaction. Not revenge, not gloating. Just acknowledgement of the truth finally being laid bare. Tanner's actions could no longer hide behind charm or bravado. Accountability had arrived. Before my father could defend him again, the front door opened. Haley walked in. She held up the document to the camera. But look at the signature at the bottom. If you've watched someone finally face consequences they should have faced years ago, you know this feeling. Share your story below. The police arrived 12 minutes later. Sirens low but insistent, cutting through the tension like a scalpel. I met them at the curb, USB drive in hand, security footage queued up on my laptop, and a folder of documents neatly organized. Every detail, the forged signatures, credit card fraud, and Tanner's previous misappropriations, was ready for them to see. They stepped inside, their presence calm but authoritative. Tanner, mid-live stream, froze as the officers approached. I didn't flinch. This was precisely the moment I had prepared for. One officer read the charges aloud, and another gently but firmly placed handcuffs on Tanner's wrists. His bravado evaporated, replaced with panic. She was watching her son get arrested for stealing her identity, and she was still trying to save him. My mother's voice cracked. "He's just a boy. He'll pay it back, I know he will." My father joined, anger boiling over. "You're ruining this family. Look at what you're doing." I held their gazes, calm but unyielding. "He ruined himself," I said, my voice steady, carrying across the room. "And I'm reclaiming my life." Their panic shifted quickly from defense of Tanner to financial anxiety. The foreclosure notices, mounting debts, and damaged credit now loomed over them, and they tried desperately to cast me as the villain. "You'll leave us homeless. How can you do this?" they cried. That I shook my head. "I didn't ruin you. You chose to enable this. You chose to ignore reality. I'm protecting myself now." With deliberate motion, I retrieved a formal trespass notice, stapled and signed, handing copies to each of them. "You were my parents," I said quietly, letting the weight of the statement settle in. "Now you're just the people who broke into my house." They argued, shouted, tried to guilt me, but I didn't respond. I turned to the door, slid the deadbolt into place, and heard the definitive click. The sound echoed like a punctuation mark on years of betrayal, a literal and symbolic barrier between their choices and my future. For the first time in years, I felt unshakable clarity. I had chosen myself, my home, and my peace over the false obligations and toxic cycles that had haunted me for decades. Tanner would face justice. My parents would have to reckon with the consequences of enabling him. And I could finally exhale, knowing that the sanctuary I had fought for, the home I had built with love, was once again mine. This wasn't just an eviction. It was a reclamation, a declaration that boundaries, self-respect, and truth matter more than blind loyalty or misplaced guilt. The police arrived 12 minutes later. She was watching her son get arrested for stealing her identity, and she was still trying to save him. Have you ever had to choose yourself over people who claimed to love you? Comment, "I chose me," if you understand. 3 months later. The glass wall is still standing. Stepping into the garden, I inhaled the thick, fragrant scent of basil and mint. The plants had grown lush, leaves vibrant and stems strong. The gentle hum of the water pumps created a rhythm that felt like a heartbeat, steady and reassuring. No ring lights, no green screens. Just life, just growth, just peace. Aunt Susan joined me for tea, her presence warm and grounding. Haley came too, her fingers bare now. No engagement ring to distract from the conversation. We sipped quietly, sharing small jokes, the kind that don't require explanation, the kind that feel like home. I listened politely as Susan recounted the latest family news. Foreclosure notices, mounting bills, and of course, the narrative that I was the one who had ruined everything. In the past, I might have felt guilt, a pang of responsibility for their discomfort. But today, I waited for it, And it never came. Instead, I walked slowly through the garden, snipping a yellow leaf from a tomato vine, letting it drop into the compost. That small act, so simple, felt like a metaphor for everything I had endured. I had pruned the dead relationships, cut away the toxic attachments, and given space for the healthy, thriving parts of my life to flourish. I smiled, finally understanding the truth I had resisted for so long. Family isn't a right. It's a title that must be earned. Blood doesn't guarantee loyalty, love, or respect. It only provides an opportunity to prove yourself. And I had chosen the people who earned my trust and presence, not the ones who demanded it by default. The garden was alive in ways it never had been before. The hydroponic system hummed like a song of renewal. I had changed my number, closed doors I would never reopen, and let go of obligations that weren't mine to carry. Peace wasn't something I was hoping for. It was something I had cultivated, like the plants around me, with patience, care, and boundaries. And no more invisible bank. No more giving to those who only took. I was the gardener, and my garden was finally free of weeds. 3 months later, the glass wall is still standing. I wasn't the invisible bank anymore. I was the gardener, and my garden was finally free of weeds. If you've ever had to prune a dead leaf to save the tree, share this story. You're not alone. Comment below. What did you have to cut away to finally grow?